everybody. I'm making some soap today. I'm making a batch for my friend Paula, who really needs a very simple, unscented, uncolored soap batch. I'm going to make 2 of these molds, but I'll just make one recipe and split the batch. Half of it will go into this one plain for Paula, and the other half I'm going to make yet another lavender soap for me and my mum because we've run out, and that's pretty tragic. This is not super planned. I'm just going to record everything that I do and I'll put a voiceover on it later and explain to you everything. And I hope this is just an enjoyable video to watch. If you love soap making, you might pick up something new, you might not. It's just another experience of sharing what I'm up to when I make my soap. So this is one of my little shelves where I keep my oils in my little office room, and I've got these bottles of small amounts of olive oil and macadamia nut oil that I used to have in my kitchen, but I wasn't really using them. So I decided I'd put them in the soap because they're lovely and, you know, waste not, want not. I've also got rice bran oil, coconut oil, really just sort of thinking I want a nice blend of hard fats and liquid fats in this soap recipe. So these are all apart from the coconut oil, which is solid when it's cool, those are all the liquid oils. And I also have palm oil in my freezer, which if you saw my videos on palm oil, you would have seen me what I did with all of this. Anyway, I'm still trying to get through it and use it up. So I take that out of the freezer as well. And that's really, along with the coconut oil, the palm oil is my main hard fat in this recipe. I'm not actually sharing this recipe with you guys because it's really just a bit of a bits and pieces kind of a soap. But I hope you enjoy the video anyway, just as a view of sort of my behind the scenes process. And this is how I make soap really when nobody's watching. This is back in my office room again. You can see my storage is a bit sort of all over the place, but I've got this tub where I keep all of my soap making jugs and buckets and things. So I get out my favourite old Tupperware jug and one of my lye jugs, and also a third jug that I'm going to use because in this recipe I'm going to do a little in-the-pot swirl, which actually turned out pretty good. So that was fun. This is my soap utensils box where I keep all of my spoons and my whisks and my stick blender and all of that. That lives in my office as well. And I'm pretty much just doing all the prep before I start making the soap. I like to get as many of these sort of time-consuming fiddly tasks out of the way before I get serious into the soap recipe. So I'm lining my molds here. These are 2 bamboo drawer liner containers from Kmart. These are the short, narrow ones, I think they're called. They're only $5. If you're in Australia, you can get these from Kmart. They make great soap molds. I like the size of these molds because I have reasonably small hands and I don't like really big bars of soap. So this is just my personal preference. But I do have videos that shows you how to calculate soap recipes for your own molds. So you don't have to be limited by any mold size. And this is me starting to sort of try and figure out what recipe I'm going to make up for this. But then I decided I really want to use up all of those little bits of olive oil and macadamia nut oil in the bottle. So I tip those into my jug and I weigh them as I go. And I'm writing down exactly how much of each I'm putting into my jug. So I'm sort of reverse engineering this recipe. I'm putting all my oils together with a rough idea of general ratios, but then the exact oil amounts, I'm writing those down as I'm putting them into the container. I ended up going with about 40% of palm oil in this recipe, 15% coconut oil, and the rest of the oils were the liquid oils. So to make up that amount that I needed, I added a bit of cold pressed organic canola oil that I had, and I did end up adding a little bit of rice bran oil as well. It's one of those funny sort of mix and match type recipes that I made. And this is the palm oil. These are the blocks that I had weighed out. They're still frozen. So rather than chopping off those big parts, I just used the little bits that I had, and I decided to add a little bit of rice bran oil in there, and my coconut oil went in there as well. Um, that's in with the liquid oils. Actually, it looks like a crazy mess that that I've got going here, but I, believe it or not, I was being very precise, and I was working it all out as I went along and recording everything exactly. So I I was getting the right amounts of each oil for the recipe. Now for the palm oil, a lot of people don't like it when I do this, and I really would like to do a video on it at some point, but I do microwave my hard fats to melt them. But I use very, very, very low heat and just do it very low and slow. So there's nothing wrong with that. More to come on that in a future video, I'm sure. And once my palm oil's kind of melting, I go back to my computer then and add all of my amounts into the soap calculator so that I can work out the correct lye amount for my soap recipe. And here's me halfway through just checking on the palm oil, giving it a stir. You want to do this very, very slow. You definitely don't want to overheat fats in the microwave, but you can safely melt oils in the microwave using a very, very low power setting over a long period of time. It's perfectly safe. And here's me getting my workspace ready. When I'm not, this is a really casual sort of, just for me, sort of a soap recipe. I don't often make much change to my kitchen. I just lay out this small piece of plastic coated tablecloth stuff that I have, and just use a really small area if it's a simple small batch that I'm making. So that works really well. I don't need a lot of space to make a small batch of soap like this. And now I'm getting my essential oils ready because I'm splitting this batch in half. Half of it is lavender soap, so I've got lavender in there, and I'm adding a little bit of cedar to the lavender as well to help anchor that. That's a really nice combination. So that's for half of the batch. Just taking a time out here, I'm editing the video, and I just realised I pretty much completely butchered the explanation of my soap recipe. What I did was I knew my total oil amount for my molds for my recipe, and then I kind of sort of worked it out as I went. I won't spend time here explaining all the ins and outs of how I did it. If you want me to explain how I actually worked that out, let me know, because I have it all written down. I just don't want to share this with you as a recipe to use because it's a really random recipe. And this is just the kind of thing that you're able to do if you know how to calculate and formulate your own soap recipes. Really, this video is about just showing how I made this batch of soap, how I did the in-the-pot swirl and all that sort of stuff. So don't get too hung up about the recipe. My recipes are made to suit me and the ingredients that I have with the person that I have in mind that I'm giving the soap to, and they fit my molds. So if you check out all my other videos on formulating and calculating and how to make recipes fit your own mold size, they will help you with all of that. But if you want to use this swirling technique, just use another one of my more straightforward recipe videos. There are heaps on here that actually have recipes that are designed for you guys. This one's more like just one for me that I happen to record and share with you. So sorry about that. If you want me to do a follow-up video to explain this mess, let me know and I'll do it. I'd be happy to explain how that actually unfolded in my head. All right, back to the video. Now I'm ready to measure out my caustic soda, my sodium hydroxide for the lye solution. Always making sure that you've got your safety goggles on when you do that, and I get my gloves on as well. The amount of caustic soda, sodium hydroxide or lye that you will need for your soap recipe depends on the oils you're using and the amounts. So I'm not going to be telling you the amounts that I'm using in this recipe. It's just really a fun, relaxed soap making session, sort of a demo recipe, really. Um, but I have calculated this in my soap calculator on my computer, so I know exactly the correct lye amount for my recipe. And to make my lye solution, I'm using ice and water for the water portion. And part of the reason for that is that I want this soap to trace really slowly because I'm going to do a swirl. And it was also a really stinking hot day outside, and I had the house all shut up with the air conditioning on, and I didn't want to open windows and turn fans on and things like that because it was so hot. So I used ice. Oh, there's my clays that I'm setting aside for the lavender soap. Yeah, using ice in the lye solution really cools it down and greatly reduces any fumes that come off that mixture when you add the sodium hydroxide to the water. Well, this is going fast. All right, so I'm melting the liquid oils into the warm palm oil from the microwave. I did them separately. I only needed to heat up the palm oil really to melt it, so I don't put things in the microwave unnecessarily. Just melt what you need to, and then you can add them together later. Now I'm getting everything ready. My lye solution there is 63 Celsius, 146 Fahrenheit. So that's pretty warm. But look at my oils, only 34 degrees. What was that? 95 Fahrenheit, about 34 degrees Celsius. So that's a lovely cool oil temperature and a warmish lye solution temperature. And that's going to equal out to be a really nice, moderately warm soap mixture that won't trace too fast. I just decided to strain my lye solution that time. I don't always do that, but I did get a bit of a floaty in that one, so I thought I'd strain it out. So I started off just with my hand blender. I thought maybe with 40% palm oil, I might be able to get away with not using the stick blender in this recipe. So I whisked it for quite some time, but then I decided to give it a bit of a blast. Look at that. It just goes light really quickly. That's all you need. If you want to keep your soap recipe tracing very, very slowly, blend it minimally. You don't want to over blend it because once you get that color change and you get a bit of emulsification happening, you can then complete the mixing to trace by hand with a whisk or a spoon, and that will really slow it down. The more you blend, the more the soap saponifies, and the more that accelerates the saponification reaction. And the more you can do by hand, the slower it will all go. This is me trying to see whether I've got a trace or not yet. It was a bit hard to see. I'm not used to making soap on that angle. Haven't done it on that part of the bench for a while. But anyway, whisking, doing a bit more until it got there. Just checking the temperature, 116 Fahrenheit, 46 Celsius. That is just about perfect. That's a lovely, moderate temperature. Just a really, really good, really nice temperature to work with. So here I am pouring out Paula's soap. There's no essential oil or color added to this. She just wanted a really plain soap. So that's her part of the batch. I'll set that aside. That'll be really nice. And now to this other part of the batch that I'm going to turn into a lavender soap. I add my essential oils into the very lightly traced soap batter and mix that through really thoroughly. And then I pour out about a quarter to a third of the soap batter into a separate jug, and I'm adding my clays in there. That's just a little bit of pink Australian clay and a bit of purple Brazilian clay. Really thoroughly mix those in. It's a bit hard to mix clays into soap batter. I generally like to mix them into the oils first, but when you're doing swirls, you can't. You've got to add them into the separated batch. But it worked pretty well. Thankfully, this was a very well-behaved recipe and it wasn't tracing too fast on me. This is how you do the in the pot swirl. Just pour some of the colored soap in different areas of the main batch or the other color soap. I mean, you can use two different colors if you want. I just left the main portion plain. So I'm just pouring that pink colored soap in a few different places around in the jug. And then it's just a process of getting that all in there. And then with the handle of your spoon, you don't want to over stir this, but just stir it around like just a couple of times. And that's all you do. Get that out. And then you very simply pour that slightly mixed batter into your mold, and you will come out with a lovely kind of marbly, natural, swirly effect, which I really adore. It doesn't look too contrived. It doesn't look like I've tried to make a work of art. There's nothing wrong with soap batches that are works of art, but it's just beyond my interest level, to be honest. I just like simple plain soap. So really simple um, in the pot swirl like this is just, you get a little bit of decoration, but it's sort of simple and stylish, and I just love the plainness of it. But it's pretty at the same time. So this is a good one, and it's a really great swirl for beginners as well. If you're just starting out and you want to do a swirl, try the in the pot swirl. It's generally pretty friendly, easy process. Then I just even out the top a little bit with a little bit of a chopstick swirl. Nothing too fancy there. It's just to smooth out any bumps, to be honest, and make that kind of look nice. If you've seen my other videos, you will know that I like plain soap. I don't tend to go for anything too fancy. Well, that was so amazing. I can barely see. I'm all sweaty under my glasses. That worked so well. I really enjoyed doing that. It was very hard to do left-handed with the camera on that side. That was the only thing that really messed me up, but wow, that was amazing. I'm going to put my goggles back on and put these in my cooler, probably overnight. I'll just wrap them up so that they gel fully. They're warm, but they're not super hot, so I do want to insulate the soap to promote the gel phase. And I will come back tomorrow. I've probably got soap on my hands. I will come back tomorrow and cut these. Wow, that was really good. I hope this in the pot swirl turns out as good as I think it might do. That's a really fun, easy swirl, a good one for beginners. So this is the soap the next day. I put it in my cooler to insulate it, not to keep it cool, but to keep it warm, to promote the soap going through a nice warm saponification and gelling. But unfortunately, you can see here, you'll see it better in a minute, I got a partial gel yet again. I don't know what's going on with me and these soap recipes, but I can't seem to get a full gel lately. That's okay. I need to probably increase the temperature of my soap batter slightly, or maybe wrap it up a bit better, keep it somewhere warmer. But it's okay. My friend Paula, she's really not, she's not bothered by a partial gel in the soap. She probably won't even notice, though. I will tell her about it. It's just a cosmetic issue. So if that happens to you, don't worry about it. Your soap is still gorgeous, and it does even out too. And here is the cutting of the soap. That gel is quite obvious. You can see the really light color around the edges, but it does even out as the soap cures. These turned out so beautiful. I really, really love these. I tend to get pretty excited every time I make soap, and I've been making soap for over 10 years now, and it doesn't get tired. I got a partial gel. Ugh. It's like every soap I've made for a while now has had a partial gel. I need to work on that. I could correct that, by putting it in the oven, but I'm not going to. This is Paula's soap. Smells nice, just smells like oil. Smells like simple oily soap smell, which I absolutely adore. She's going to love that. And that gel too, by the way, that will fade. So these are just cut. If you get a partial gel like that where it's dark in the middle, it does even out over time. So don't worry, it's just very noticeable when your soap is freshly cut. These were a bit crumbly. I should have cut them a bit earlier. Should have probably cut them last night. But these, the lavender ones with the essential oil in them, they were a bit softer because they had a bit of extra stuff in them. So they didn't come out crumbly, which is good. The swirl in these, the in-the-pot-swirl, these need a clean up. Turned out really nice. That will improve. Like freshly cut soap, don't judge a soap by what it looks like or even what it smells like when it's freshly cut, because they even out and everything gets better with a bit of time. Anyway, I am super stoked about this recipe and about my little soap making session, and that I got to share it with all of you. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy your batches. Tell me what you're making in the comments. Please interact with me. I love doing that on new videos. And I will get back to writing my book, and I will see you next time.